In this video, we're going to tackle task 11, which is the Monte Carlo simulation. So a very important part of the probabilistic analysis. You will see that the simulation sheet is now visible, and I have it open on the right of my screen here. And we're going to use this simulation sheet to conduct the first two iterations of a Monte Carlo simulation. Now, if you were building this model yourself in Excel, then you would use a macro to conduct this Monte Carlo simulation. And a macro is a way of automating tasks in Excel. So with just a few minutes of programming, you can write a macro that will conduct 1,000 or 10,000 Monte Carlo simulations, which is far quicker than doing it manually. But writing macros is beyond the scope of this exercise. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the first two iterations manually ourselves, just so we understand how this works. And then the remainder of those iterations will be conducted for you automatically. And if you are interested in writing macros, then there are resources available so you can learn how to write these Visual Basic macros in Excel if you're interested in doing that. Okay, so task 11, step 11.1, retrieve the aggregated cost for treatment A. So what we need to do on this simulation sheet is we need to pull in the aggregated costs for treatment A and the aggregated cost for treatment B, the aggregated qualities for treatment A and the aggregated qualities for treatment B, pull them all in from the model sheet onto this simulation sheet in just a single row. So row 23, this is going to be populated with a lot of data, costs, qualities for both treatments. And so the way to do that, in the first step, we're just focusing on the costs for treatment A. We need to just pull in, let's have a look for it. It's going to be aggregated costs for treatment A just here. So D64, that's what we need to pull in. So let's just write equals, go to the model sheet, and D64. And what that will automatically do is this formula will be copied across and it will pull in E64 and F64 and so on. So this is correct. So the simulation sheet is now expanded, and right now we are pulling in all of those aggregated costs for treatment A all the way up to cycle 61. And the next part is to do the same thing for the aggregated costs for treatment B. And the reason we need to do this on a separate sheet is because those aggregated costs for B are in a very different part of the model sheet. They're all the way down here in D132. And by putting them all on one row like this, it makes it easy to perform that Monte Carlo simulation. We can just duplicate that row many, many times. Okay, so those are all correct. Next, we want to aggregated qualities for treatment A. So the qualities this time. So equals, model, go up to qualities for A, and it's this one here, so D81. Okay, and then here we go to aggregated qualities for treatment B. So that equals, we'll go to the model sheet, and that'll be right down at the bottom. Qualities for treatment B, aggregated qualities are in D149. And you'll have seen that we have these hide columns checkboxes that are appearing. So you can click those if you wish. I haven't clicked any right now, but you might find that it helps to keep the sheet to a manageable size. Okay, so we have this very long row now, the 61 cycles for each of the costs for A, costs for B, qualities for A, qualities for B. So there's over 240 columns of data here within row 23. And what we need to do on the Monte Carlo simulation is we need to copy these into the cycles below. So, sorry, don't mean the cycles, I mean the iterations below. So iteration 1, iteration 2, and so on. And in doing so, we need to make sure that the spreadsheet is updating each time, that we're using a different iteration value. If you recall from the previous task, that iteration value is on the setting sheet. So in this step 11.5, we're going to perform the first iteration. So the first thing we need to do is go back to that setting sheet, just confirm that we're on iteration 1. Okay, so yes, we're on iteration 1. So these are the aggregated costs in each cycle on iteration 1 for treatment A. So what we need to do is select all of this data. So click on D23 and then go all the way across to IP23. Hold down Shift and click on IP23, and you've selected, over 240 columns of data there. We're going to copy this, and then we're going to go all the way back to column D, and we're going to click here. And if you want, you can select this entire range. You don't have to, though. You can just select that one cell and click on it. And it's very important to do paste values only. So again, often in this exercise, we're pasting the formulas. Not this time, we're pasting the values. So the current values that are in row 23, of course, row 23 is full of formulas. We don't want the formulas, we just want the values. We're going to paste them into row 33. And you can see there that that's the values. Okay, so marking is in progress. Okay, and that's complete. That's all good. One thing to say about this is because there are so many values that are being marked here, there's over 240 cells here. What the automated marking system does on this step is it just checks whether everything is correct. And it should be, right? If you're just copying all of those cells from row 23, everything should be correct. It's very unlikely that there'll be 1 or 2 cells that are incorrect if you've got to this stage in the exercise. So it does a very quick check. If there are cells that are wrong, it does not go through individually. There are just too many cells. So it will just tell you the whole range is wrong. But that's quite unlikely. Okay, so we're on to step 11.6, update the current iteration number to 2. So we go to the settings page, and here we're going to change that 1 to a 2. And again, if you were writing a macro to do this yourself in Excel, part of that macro on each iteration would be going to this sheet and just incrementing that number, just adding 1 to that number. That would be an important part of your macro. And then the next part of the macro would be to go back to the simulation sheet, and it would be to copy whatever's in these cells here. I'll just wait for that next step to unlock, perform the second iteration. So yeah, your macro, after updating the iteration number, it would come here and it would select all these cells and it would copy them again, and then it would paste them, but this time into row 34. So as part of your macro, it's a really good idea to have an offset. So you would offset the row on each iteration by the current iteration number. So that's a good way to make sure that you'd be pasting into a different row each time you run that macro. Okay, so we're going to paste the values there, and you can see these are different, right? We have different values in iteration 1, so we do in iteration 2. And it's all what as I said earlier, we're not going to do we're not going to write the macro now. So to save some time, the rest of the iterations have been put in for you, all the way down to 1,000. And if you were to write a macro, these are the exact numbers you would get. So I've done this for you. I've put this all of this spreadsheet data into Excel, and I've run the macro myself and copied the data across here for you. So that saved us a bit of time. As I said, writing macros is beyond this exercise, but it is an important skill. So there we go. That is the Monte Carlo simulation complete. Just as a tidying up in the final step, reset the current iteration number to 1. Okay, so we do that so it's ready for next time. So it's good practice to tidy things up, and the next time we run the Monte Carlo simulation, we are ready to go. Okay, so that's step 11.8 complete, and we're now on to task 12, and I'll see you in the next video for task 12.